With the Southwest now a part of the U.S., the United States government was looking for routes through the territory, roads, railroads, and navigation on the Colorado.
Politically, big powerhouse in the United States Congress and Senate are the Southern Democrats, and they're looking for a rail system. They like the idea of having a southern rail route to bring commerce from east to west. About that period of time, you have the Missouri Compromise and the Mason-Dixon line, and you have those north-south issues with slavery. And so they're looking to push to get a rail line across the southern portion of the United States to give them a little political balance into Texas and into New Mexico and then into California.
There were many in the East that thought that the Colorado might serve as a shipping lane similar as the Mississippi. A few Easterners understood the navigation problems posed by this Red River.
There was general agreement in the United States in the 1850s that the creation of the Pacific Railroad was an absolute necessity. That we had to have bands of steel that stretched from sea to shining sea if we were going to hold together this new nation. The problem was the Congress couldn't agree on whether to put it through a northern latitude or a southern latitude. And the southern congressmen and senators thought it ought to be as far south as you can get it. You see, they said nobody ever dreamed that there'd be more than one. And they could see the tremendous regional advantage to having the terminus in the south or in the north. And so Congress did something that Congress still does today. They decided in their wisdom, since they couldn't agree, that they would let the weight of scientific data determine where the railroad should go. So they sent these detachments from the Corp of Topographical Engineers out into the American West to determine the most practicable route to the Pacific for a railroad. That's the language that they used. And these guys turned out to be the brightest of the brightest. I mean, it's the people at the top of the class in West Point went into the Corps of Topographical Engineers in those days. So they assembled really bright, fairly junior officers in charge of these things. And they assembled groups of other officers and scientists and a detachment of soldiers to protect them, and off they went over the various parallels of north latitude. So logically, one of those parallels to be explored was the 35th parallel.
In the 1850s, the U.S. government committed funds for exploring and surveying along the 35th parallel. There were many in key government positions firmly committed to create passageways through this Mohave land, from the east to the west and from the south to the north.
But Lorenzo S Graves traveled across northern Arizona in 1851 as far as the Colorado River, and then sort of gave up and went down the Colorado River instead of striking out across the desert into California. And that the report of his activities was published. His diary was published soon. And so it was available to subsequent explorers. So S Graves is important in that he provided one of the earliest written glimpses, I guess the earliest, from a disciplined Army engineer of all of northern Arizona there.
Lieutenant Emil W. Whipple surveyed the area in 1853.
My orders were to make such explorations and surveys as may be deemed advisable to ascertain the most practical and economical route for a railroad from the Mississippi River to the Pacific Ocean. With the aid of the previous work of Captain Lorenzo S Graves, I surveyed a route close to the 35th parallel. I deviated south of the previous survey, following the Bill Williams River in search of a suitable grade for the railroad.
But the bottom line is they came and told Congress the one thing that Congress didn't want to hear. You can put it wherever you want. And so Congress actually, along about 1855, 1856, gave up. It was just too hard. They could not get a political solution to where the railroad would go. The engineers should have come back and said, or maybe they didn't understand this, you could put it wherever you want so far as the physics are concerned, but as far as the weather is concerned, you should put it a little farther south. And in retrospect, there's no question what the best route would have been, the 35th parallel route. The mountains are not as high. They got a pretty straight shot. They got a few obstacles to cross. It would strike the country in the east in the Midland, so it would serve more interests. But they couldn't make that decision or any other decision.